So this may come as a shock to some of you, but I'm a bit of a tokusatsu fan slash nerd. It's shameful, I know. Some of you may have picked up on this with the number of Power Rangers games that have appeared on the channel in Let's Play form, or the fact I have a second channel called Reacting Sentai Yoppa Ranger, a channel where myself and my buddy Kev get tipsy and watch tokusatsu shows and sometimes review films. Feel free to check that out if it sounds like your kind of thing. For this new Mellow Gaming Recommends episode, I thought I'd take a look at a game that spun off from a show that was many people's first exposure to the genre that is tokusatsu. That show being Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and the game being, well, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo. In case you don't know, the word tokusatsu itself literally means special filming. It refers to a genre show heavy in special effects and generally featuring monsters and robots and superheroics. The franchise we know as Power Rangers was adapted from one such show, but more on that later. Let's talk about the game. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a late 1994 game developed by the Japanese studio Natsume. These days Natsume are mostly known for publishing the Harvest Moon games, although not the Story of Season games, which are the actual continuation of the original Harvest Moons, but that's like a whole mess that would need its own video to explain. Suffice to say, they're still around today and were behind the development of this game based on an American adaptation of a Japanese TV show. The game itself is a pretty standard belt-scrolling beat-em-up, although it doesn't feature vertical movement like, say, Streets of Rage. This is strictly on a 2D plane. Combat is nice and simple, and while it feels overly basic today, it was pretty much the standard back then. Enemies pop out from the backgrounds or just wander in from the sides, usually in a nice orderly line, which makes popping them in the mouth nice and easy. Many enemies go down in one hit too, although gradually you'll need bigger combos and maybe a few new tactics to take care of some of the later ones. As you may have noticed from the footage so far, all of the enemies are the original villainous foot soldiers, the Putties. Classic, easily defeated mooks that they are. This can come across as lazy, but is entirely in keeping with the show, which, at the time, hadn't introduced any new minions for the Rangers to fight. So I'll give them a pass here. Also, some of them have shields, so there's that for your variety. As you play the game a few times, you'll realise there's a little more thought put into their placement than you'd think. The game clearly wants you to take them out in a certain order to avoid being ganged up on. Nothing groundbreaking, but it does mean you can get into a bit of a zen enemy cleaning up state at times. The general play cycle of the game goes like this. You'll play a stage as your unmorphed ranger. At the end of a stage you'll encounter the main monster for this set of levels, all ones taken from the TV show. You'll then morph into your ranger form and have a couple of extra techniques for the next stage or two. You'll now have a screen clearing super attack based on which ranger you are. You'll also have the ability to use your ranger's combo finisher at any time by pressing up and the attack button at the same time. Oddly, one ranger has an additional skill, that being Kimberly. If you press up and attack with her, she'll fire off an arrow for a light damage but long range attack which no other ranger has. You'll also gain the ability to leap off walls, although this is largely only useful in a few platforming sections. Still, wall jumps are cool and this is a pretty solid take on them, dead easy to pull off too. Later in the game you'll have a few giant Megazord based fights which have more in common with a 1v1 beat 'em up, although much simpler. A power gauge builds up at the bottom of the screen and when you press your special attack button you'll unleash a move based on what stage of the meter the attack had reached. This allows you to decide between smaller but more frequent blasts or saving up for that big finishing blow. A finishing blow the enemies can block, which can almost evoke the drama of those moments from the show where the Rangers think they're about to win but the enemy survives. Also, the final boss, Cyclopsis, from the two-parter episode Doomsday, is a total jerk and I hate him. That said, I was surprised how it only took me a few attempts on this playthrough to beat him. Usually I'm there for ages. The game is a moderate challenge that ramps up to pretty frustrating levels by the time you reach the Megazord fights, but it's by no means as tough as, say, Hagane or Super Castlevania, or other similar platform action games of the day. Man, I should do a video on Hagane, as soon as I can afford a copy, and also be good at it. So, never gonna happen. A very special mention needs to be made about the game's music. It is absolutely fantastic, all full of 16-bit rock sounds and the sort of pumping riffs you'd expect from games such as Castlevania, and with good reason too. The game's two credited composers are Iku Mizutani and Kinya Yamashita. Iko Mizutani worked on a number of Natsume games and even created the sound driver system they used at the time. Kinyo Yamashita, though, is one of the most notable women in 80s and 90s game compositions. She is behind music for games such as the original Castlevania, Power Blade 1 and 2, Nemesis 2 and Parodius. She also composed music for Natsume Pro Wrestling, Mega Man The Wily Wars and Mega Man X3. That's quite the lineup of games. Her music in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers really sits up there with those soundtracks for me. It's a blast to just listen to, and some of the themes are regulars on the YouTube video game music covering world. So, a game based on the show Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which was itself based on the Super Sentai series Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, which is one of them tokusatsus I mentioned earlier. You may expect this game to be a port of a Zyuranger game with all the characters of Geki and the team replaced with Jason and his pals. That makes sense, right? It was pretty common back then to adapt Japanese games with a number of changes to help westernise them. Well, that wasn't the case here. This game is a Japanese developed game based entirely on the American show. That kind of stands as a testament to just how popular the early seasons of Power Rangers were. It was popular enough that you'd have an entirely original game made just for the Western markets. It's not that there wasn't a Zyuranger game either. There was one made by Arc System Works, who you may know today as the developers of BlazBlue and Dragon Ball FighterZ. This was a game for the Famicom, released in November 1992, a full 2 years before the Power Rangers game. Zyuranger was on Japanese TV from early 1992 to early 1993. And it was a few months later that it made its way to the US in its Power Rangers format. And as mentioned, the Power Rangers game didn't come out until late 1994. The viability of porting a Famicom game to the NES in the United States changed a lot in those 2 years. Many Super Sentai games are done on a lower budget, which is likely the reason why Zyuranger's game was made for the Famicom rather than the already released Super Nintendo. That, and there really wasn't a huge amount of Super Sentai based games. In fact, the next Super Sentai game on consoles after that Zyuranger one wasn't until 1996 when Gekito Sentai Car Ranger had a game for Bandai's slightly odd Super Famicom add-on, the Sufami Turbo. Quite amazingly, not a single Power Rangers game, and there are many, is based on a previously released Super Sentai game, even when there wasn't a cross-generational gap. For example, there were PlayStation 1 games based on Gaoranger and Hurricaneger, but no PS1 Power Rangers branded versions for the Wild Force and Ninja Storm seasons. Although, granted, they would have been very late PlayStation 1 games. Bizarrely, there is one Power Rangers game that was adapted for Super Sentai in Japan, and that is the mobile game Power Rangers Dash, which was turned into Ultra Super Sentai Dash. Even better, the SNES Power Rangers The Fighting Edition game, released in 1995, was reskinned by its developers into a game based on the anime Gundam Wing, that game being Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Endless Duel. Slightly related, there was one tokusatsu show that had a game ported to the West and completely reskinned into something else. The 1991 Metal Hero show Super Rescue Soul Brain had a title adapted for US markets as the somewhat legendary NES game Shatterhand. All the character graphics and cutscenes were changed to remove any references to the show, and one stage was changed entirely. The games are mostly the same though. Just thought that was kinda neat. Some of y'all have been playing a tokusatsu game all these years. I should probably get back to action, shouldn't I? What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So this game is one I played as a kid who was probably just reaching the age where you're meant to stop watching Power Rangers. But what was I meant to do? Stop watching a show about giant robots and monsters with a kick-ass rock soundtrack? Have you met me? Not a chance, mate. I used to play this often with my Reacting Sentai Yoppa Ranger co-host Kevin, and we'd finish it quite regularly. One of those game-playing time staples for us. There was also a password you could enter to play a versus mode where you fight as the Megazords, which we'd use often. It doesn't work so well with 2 players though, a neat little hidden inclusion nonetheless. As you play for the game, you'll cover the usual fighting locations from the show. You know the sort of places: streets, parklands, warehouses and factories, sewers. Sewers? I don't remember many sewer fights in Season 1 of Power Rangers. Another aspect that's more obviously not quite right for when the game was released is its lineup of Rangers. Season 2 of the Power Rangers show had a bit of a troubled time as 3 of the show's leads, Austin St. John, Walter Jones and Toy Trang, all left over pay disputes. In the show they were Jason, Zack and Trini respectively. To be fair, the show was huge, and according to some of the cast they were not paid much at all. They were replaced by the new characters of Rocky, Adam and Aisha, played by Steve Cardenas, Johnny Young Bosch and Karen Ashley. This happened just a few weeks before the game was released in the United States. This can be excused though, as the game still uses the Season 1 Megazords originally from Zyuranger rather than Season 2's Dairanger based mecha. The game's final battle takes place on the moon, which is pretty cool. Not show accurate, but I'm not going to be that pedantic. I could be, but I won't. Once you've beaten Cyclopsis and its golden form, you witness the game's end sequence. This features the Rangers, unmorphed, heading to Ernie's Juice Bar to celebrate their hard-earned victory. Also, there's Bulk and Skull. Everyone loves Bulk and Skull. Closest thing the US ever got to the Chuckle Brothers, those guys are. I would like to point out the slightly awkward, possibly racist sprite used for Zack though. Like, come on, that's questionable, right? And that is me done with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo. I wouldn't say the game was more phenomenal exactly, but it is one I have a lot of fondness for and is definitely better than you'd expect a licensed game made in about a year to be. Especially as they didn't have an already produced game to base it on. It being a licensed game is a bit of a double-edged sword though. It means that it has never been re-released and likely never will be. Such is the fate of many a TV and movie based game. It is somewhat cheap to get a loose cart of, generally selling for about £10 to £15 on eBay. A box copy is a bit trickier to get a price on. Super NES boxes aren't known for being the sturdiest things around, and those that do sell seem to go for anywhere between £50 to £70. Not sure it's worth that much, but I don't tell you what to do with your money, I'm not your mum. Basically, my advice is, if you want the game, buy it. Or don't, it's up to you. Glad I could help. And that's it for today. If you'd like to know more about how Super Sentai the show gets adapted into Power Rangers, I'll leave a few links in the description to videos that focus on that. Thank you to my lovely Patreon backers who sponsor me for every Mellow Gaming Recommends episode I make. Here's their names on the screen now, which is where your name could appear if you were a backer too. And you'd get to see any scripted videos like this a day early. I recently added a new goal on Patreon where, once hit, I'll work on the mammoth task that is a Yakuza game series retrospective. So maybe back me if you'd like to see that happen. If you like this video, maybe do a like and subscribe. It's up to you, because, as mentioned, I'm not your mum. Do as you like and stuff. Would be nice though. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.